All right, so we're gonna look at a couple common flow errors and flow conditions here. Right now, I just have a sample flow switch plugged in. I took it out of this T down here. This is Dimension 1 part number 6500-961. It's used on all Dimension 1 for this pack here from 2015 on until current. The pack part number is 6600-519. So I have to remember that real quick. It's also a YT8 or a YT7. There are other variations of it. That's the Gecko, essentially like the Gecko model number. So, you know, you'll find this in other brands as well. You will see also the manufacturer of it. So you might look here and see a part number that's relevant to the manufacturer of the flow switch. You can sometimes find that elsewhere. That's that Q number right there. So in this case, I have like a kind of like a test flow switch plugged in. If we wanted to know where it went, we could look at the schematic. It says pressure switch. See right there at the P66, it's referencing the flow switch. So right now I'm gonna take a look. We should have a flow error. Why? Because the flow switch is in the open position. So this is open. So imagine if this was plugged in right now into the sensor T right there, and we had water flowing through it, and that switch was not closed, it would not be reading flow, even though that circulation pump is on. So let's go take a look. We should have an error. We do. We got a flow condition. Check filter, pump, blockage, airlock, and water level. Flow's good. Okay. So we got good flow now. So maybe like if we were a technician or, you know, customer looking at this, the error we might start with either the flow switch or the board. Now the easiest thing to replace and test is a flow switch here. So the first thing we're gonna do is, if this was, again, remember this is installed, so if I was using my installed flow switch, which I unplugged right here, I couldn't do this testing, but I do want to simulate this testing to show you what happens. So in this case, I'm just gonna close the flow switch to simulate that it now has adequate flow. So I'm gonna hand that off to my helper there with their painted nails. I'm gonna go look, flow switch is closed. Oops, error message has gone away, other than my reminder. But see, no more error message. Now go ahead and open the flow switch. Go ahead and release your thumb. So in a moment, we should get that error message back. There it is. And go ahead and close it again. And in a moment, because she just closed it, that message went away. So it takes, you know, 3 to 5 seconds probably. So let's come around here again. And we're gonna do a nice little trick here. So normally I would use like a flathead screwdriver or something like that. In this case, I don't have one with me, but I'm just gonna show you something real quick. So technician or customer does not have, you know, the capacity to do what I just did. Plug in a flow switch, test it by closing it. I'm gonna jump across these pins. So we see 3 pins there. So I found this, I'm gonna stick it in there, I'm gonna wedge it in there across those 3 pins, really those two outside pins, because it's, if you look at the flow switch, we've got the red and the black there in the outside pins. So we're gonna jump across that. I'm gonna use this little jumper right here. There we go. And I just kind of stuck it in there, and if you look, see it's making contact with the 2 outside pins. So now our error message should have gone away. We'll see. And it has. Again, tell me to rinse the filter, but the error message has gone away. Go back here. Unplug this. Took that out. Flow switch not plugged in. Error message is back. Okay, so what is that telling us? That's telling us that the board is working. The board is recognizing whether or not the flow switch is open or closed. That's a good sign. That means that the board is not the issue. Circ pump is not the issue, because even jumping it, you know, we jumped it. So jumping it, if the circ pump was the issue, that would essentially trick the board. But remember, we also tested it with the flow switch as well. So let's do that. Let's test it again with the installed flow switch. We have the flow switch installed. See if we take a look there. It does show that it's closed, right? Because this is hooked up to my circ pump. So we're gonna go up here, we're gonna find the flow switch, and we're gonna plug it in. Push it in there. I just heard a click. That should be the heater relay clicking. And the error message went away. Okay. So in this case, what we just kind of troubleshot was the flow switch was the issue, right? We tested the flow switch, we jumped across it, we restored flow. It did read adequate flow. The board was not the issue. Now there is a scenario where the circulation pump could still be the problem. In this case, it was not, but jumping across the flow switch like we did, and maybe a consumer technician looks at the flow and says, well, it looks good. Well, we didn't really prove that the circulation pump was good in that case though, because all we did is trick the board into reading adequate flow. In this case, we had it plugged in line. So because this is in my plumbing, I plugged it back in. I know that that flow switch is working. Okay. So it's an easy thing to replace, easy thing to test, to see what's going on there. Now, in some cases, we have an issue where the flow switch is closed before the power is sent to the board. So let's say there's a situation where we have a flow condition error. Essentially, the board thinks that the flow switch, instead of being open, so reading no flow, has been closed. In this case, maybe there's some kind of blockage or some kind of debris that's stuck on the flow switch. So if that happens, in many cases, that could be a stuck relay, so like a relay for the circulation pump, or it could be a bad circulation pump. Now, a good way to test that, so let's say we've ruled out the flow switch and other issues, and we want to test that the circulation pump is the issue, or if the relay for the circulation pump is stuck on, not turning off, maybe it's overheating the water. Here's how we would test that. Go to settings, and then we're going to go to, I believe it's maintenance. Whoops, I can't do this while I'm having the camera. Maintenance, and then we're going to do standby. Now, standby, the idea of standby is that it's shutting off all of the pumps. The circulation pump should turn off after a period of time. If it does not, that usually means that the relay is stuck. So if we go back over here, where it said all pumps were off. So my circ pump is still running. So normally that would have shut the circ pump off. Now, oh, there it goes. That's funny because it happened in about 15 seconds. So I guess be patient. So let's go take a look. There we are. Circ pump is off. So 15, 20 seconds. So it doesn't happen right away, but it did happen eventually, that the relay did shut off the circulation pump. So I know that the board is working the way it should be, and it is, the relay is indeed turning on or off as it needs to, based on whether or not the flow is adequate. So that's really just a quick video on some tests that we can do for the flow switch and the circulation pump to see what the issue is that we're having with our flow.